judges and let the judges get back to work. Judge here, I believe you're up first.
Good morning. I'll be very brief. The budget we propose, first of all, employee wages at 3%, which is, I believe, consistent with what you indicated we should do. I think both courts have provided for a 3% increase for our public defender contract. In circuit, we've asked for a significant increase for the funding for the Troy after-school program. I think around $7,000. Have my copy right in front of me right now, but I think we went from 18 to 25,000. The reason for that is that the Troy Township trustee has requested a increase in rent, which is totally justified considering the size of the building and the upkeep on it, of about $600 a month. So if we can fund that through the court share of the Troy budget, that would accomplish that. So that's around $7,000. The other increase I had that was significant was the my part-time help. I think I've gone from 10 to requesting 15,000. Utilizing a part-time person probably around 25 hours a week right now, and I thought earlier this year I might be approaching you for seeking another full-time position, but I decided that we aren't get to a point where we need that at this point. But we do keep our part-time person very busy with doing a lot of the routine things that take time away from the other people in their dedicated jobs, such as copying and pulling files and transmitting things back and forth here to the government center. So she also covers for the others when they're taking time off, answering phones and that sort of thing. So at any rate, the part-time is the other significant increase. Everything else I think is pretty much the way we've done business in the past, and certainly answer any questions to the best of my ability.
On your juvenile court admin position, it shows a $2,562 increase. Do you know what that's about?
That's for the juvenile court administrator. I think that's to get her up to the, we redid her pay grade, I believe, and that brings her up, I think that brings her up consistent with the court reporter.
To like base or something?
Right.
Okay.
So I think the court reporter and the juvenile court reporter administrator were, under the most recent grading system, we're in the same classification, so they should be paid the same, in my opinion.
I think that's one position that we upgraded to the personnel committee.
Yeah, I was just checking. Pam can always.
You guys still seeing good value to that deal out there at the Troy's?
Yes,
the Troy Center.
So with some kids, the best thing we can do for them after school is keep them busy and keep them on track. And the original purpose of that program was to avoid a lot of out-of-home placements of kids, which are very expensive, as we all know. And so far, I think it's an effective program. We like to, sometimes our numbers get down a little bit, but we're building it back up, and got dedicated people are really helping out a lot of kids. And it's kind of, it also ties into that day program that's providing the school corporations partially fund for alternative education. So we've got kids who are in both programs that otherwise wouldn't be in school and maybe out on the streets and creating trouble.
Both courts use that system?
No, that's just through those kids are placed through juvenile court, and circuit does all the juvenile cases. So they're strictly, I don't believe you would have anything in your budget for that.
I don't have anything in my budget, but I have used the day program. I have a couple kids, 18 years old, that just can't seem to stay out of trouble, and I can either incarcerate them and they don't graduate. What we've done is worked with Nikki at the Troy Center on two kids, one in particular, and basically I locked them up in jail, and the Troy Center came and got him every morning, took him out to the school during the day. The kid, I let him out to graduate, and he came back to jail the night after graduation. But understanding that he had to be punished because he violated probation, I gave him a chance, he violated again. But if we dump him out with no high school degree, he's just going to come back to me. So they did a great job. It's a little different than what Jim's talking about, the evening program, but that day program, he went out there and he studied and he graduated with the rest of his class. So I have used it on occasion, just not the nighttime youth program, but I've used that day program for seniors that are 18.
How long have you leased that center? Is that a couple years, 3?
3 or 4 years, I believe, right?
Have they had any other kind of rent increase, or what did it
No,
go?
I think we've been paying, I don't actually remember the amount. It's been very, very, more than reasonable. And, but just their, I know their maintenance costs and everything. If they want to keep it open and viable, they just have to. Because the township is writing off a loss on it every year unless they don't get an increase. Why, I'm not sure what they could do to keep the building open.
So does that include utilities and everything?
We do not pay utilities. Township pays utilities. It's strictly rent, or everything else is paid through the township.
I know that somebody on who has been working with the school system to try and get their fund up.
Right, and that's all kind of in the works right now, Bill. There's even some talk of making this a standalone school under the new like charter and voucher programs that legislature authorizes now, but we're still trying to, the best scenario is to work with the schools and but obviously they're short on funds too, and we feel we should be getting more of that money that the state pays per child.
Yeah, that would
and that's what we've been working on, and we've been making some progress in that direction. This is all 3 school corporations, not just Whitley County. Both Smith Green and Whitco participate in this program as well. So.
I think you've had a couple out of the county.
Right, we will take people who pay the fee. Parents can place their kids there, but they're on a per pay. I mean, they're not scholarship or anything like that. They have to actually pay the cost of it.
individually.
Right, through the family, through their parents.
Sure.
And then they get, I think the credits then are sent back to whatever school corporation.
I know that there is the upkeep is a major thing of that building. Everything, there's some things that need to be fixed yet, but overall, it's a pretty good sound building for what they're using it for, and it's great to have
We're about
them
8
out.
miles closer to Columbus City. It's a great site, it's a great building for what we need, exactly what we need, just transportation out there.
I suppose there's somebody could come in, pick it up, and move it. I'm sure that I don't think you'll get anybody out in Detroit Township would balk about doing it.
But as we've, Township's been very generous with us.
I'd like
It's been a
to
great
see,
site.
if in time, if it's gonna continue to be out there, I'd like to see maybe talk to the commissioners about putting a referendum on the ballot and see if we could get some tax money to help support it,
Yeah.
other than just Tom and I supporting it.
The rent we're paying now and the increase in rent is a short-term fix, but long-term we need to do something else, we know that. So.
But I live within 3/4 of a mile of the place, and I go past there a dozen times a day, and it's always good to see a lot of activity going around there.
Could I ask a question? The commissioners have $25,000 line item for Troy Center. If they have a line item, why can't that be shipped over to the, I mean, it's just a shift, but why would the commissioners have a,
How's that used?
goes to Troy Center?
But that come out of the seating, right? Just comes out of their budget.
Uh-huh. All I'm asking is, because that'd be one more thing we shift over to the, what I'm trying to accomplish this year is to shift things to more appropriate places. And that,
How did that get put in the commissioner's budget?
Because last year, we took away their line item for land, or Nadine, soil and water, and they still had the 25, and they chose to take it from soil and water funding and put it in youth improvement, educational supplies.
Are we using any of that money, or is it paid, who's it paid to
Paula's-
in a lump sum?
Paula, and she used it for wages this year.
Who oversees how that money's spent out there? They just got money.
Community Corrections Board of Directors oversees that. Paula Gordon obviously is the individual employee that's in charge.
The board, and how are they appointed?
The board's set by statute. 2 judges sit on the board, a representative of the commissioners, a representative of the council, John, you're on now. There are community members, someone who's been the former victim of a crime can be on the board. Actually, a former crime or perpetrator of a crime could be on the board too. But it's set by statute. There are 7 or 8 are fixed, and then there are some community members. So I think we've got 12 to, I think a public defender, another attorney, 12 to 14 members on the board.
Does that board meet? Yes.
It meets quarterly.
Yes, quarterly.
Well, they meet and review any time we want to change programming at Troy Center, or this they report, or the alternative school program. That all goes through that board for review, and there's also an executive committee of that board that meets monthly to take up issues that can't wait for the next quarterly meeting of the boards.
I guess I wouldn't be opposed to putting that 25,000 over there if there's a board that oversees it. I just want to put it somewhere and.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a good point. Mr. Rethling's on it, I'm not on it, but I can tell you, he takes it very seriously, and it's a great board.
That board also has oversight over the work release center and
Yeah.
the community home detention program and all those things.
Community corrections designated as board on it, so.
It just seems like if they have that fund too, why don't we just shift it into one fund?
Well, before that takes place, remember, we took that 25,000 from soil and water because soil and water has such a surplus right now in their fund. And then we named the 25,000 educational under the commissioner's line item. So that can be there now for Troy Center, but may have to go back to soil and water eventually. Or you could end up having the 25,000 soil water, 25,000 Troy Center without even realizing how that happened.
I submitted mine proposal on the assumption that there would still be the 25,000 coming from the commissioner's budget. So
There's still a large surplus in soil and water.
Yeah.
There's a note in your thing of how much she has in CDs and still has a larger church thing, so she won't need it, from what I've seen, for a couple of years. But like you said, it'll get lost. People will change up here in the next 3 or 4 years, and then it'll double up. So it's the commissioner's call, but
No, do we have to provide that 25,000 to soil and water, or they
No.
just always had?
just always was. We only need to have a person, Nadine, and we pay part of the contracted employee out there, the Haskins gentleman. That's all we're required at the county level to fund out there from all the statute I've read. So it can go to their,
If that's moved over to you, Jim, is there a way that you make sure that it's being used out there?
well,
Not
they sign
someplace
a, Paula Warden submits a claim as she needs the money, and then to me, and I sign off on the claim, and then obviously we keep track of keep our monthly budget to make sure where we are in funding. But right now, I think that the current rent's being paid out of the circuit court budget and other supplies and things, and I think that those other funds that somebody said were used for teachers and counselors and the people actually working out there. So.
I guess I wouldn't have a problem moving it over as long as you make sure that it's used for Troy Center.
Right, no, that's the,
Some accountability.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's something we need to talk to Paula about, is when she,
I'd like to get her take on that too, because she's
yeah.
much more attuned to how these monies move around than I am. But if she's concerned about that, I'd like to ask you to talk to her about it.
Any other questions?
I don't.
Kinda got off your budget, but anyway, learning experience from everybody.
Thank you.
I'll turn you over to Smooth Talker.
He's asked for all that extra money, all I added was $2,500 for the supplies.
Hey, Judge, before you leave, pauper attorneys, is there, that getting repaid back very much or not? I mean, are you collecting from the people that
Most we
use
can
them?
assess is $100 per, by statute, $100 per defendant, so we are getting some money back. But, and that just goes back into the general fund, I believe, so. I wish we could have a little better system of reimbursement, but that's kind of where we are right now. I know we used to be in that state reimbursement program, but the increased cost, I think we've talked about it in the past, the increased
So if we knew somebody that knew a state legislator that might be able to.
I'm on my way out the door now.
On that vein, Joe, we're trying to collect in our court a lot more of that, whether it's 50 for a misdemeanor, 100. I've actually had people that are borderline with the public defender that I've had them pay up front and make it a term of their bond that they pay like $50 for the next 2 Fridays or the next 2 months. So we've got that money in place, and we can always review the bond schedule. But I often, and Amy sits through court, I very rarely find people totally indigent. I find them what's called partially indigent. And if they're partially indigent, then I can collect some of those fees back. And if we've got it out of their bond, we can do that. And so I periodically try to review the bonds and see where we're at with the state mandated fees. And if we need to increase them to cover community service and call for council, we're trying to collect some of that back.
How successful have you been at doing that?
Pretty successful. And I try to keep it on an evaluation process. If I've got somebody that just doesn't have any money, or they're on disability or something like that, I don't assess it. But actually, Amy and I will tell you the community corrections staff are the ones that have really done a great job of collecting those funds. They meet with the folks and they set up a payment plan and they schedule it, and they do the follow-up with collecting it and sending out the letters saying, hey, you still owe us money. And so I don't know what the numbers are because I haven't sat down and looked at them compared to past years, but I know we've made a conscious effort to try to get some of that money back because everybody comes in and wants a public defender, and quite frankly, I just don't grant it. I think there's a difference between being indigent and being irresponsible with your money and having the county taxpayers pay for your public defender. So I guess I've been called a bit of a Scrooge on that, but it's just sort of my philosophy on that. But we are trying to collect some of that back, but I have not sat down and looked at the cash on that yet. I'm sorry?
Do the reported claims from the clerk's office or from your office?
I'm sorry, now?
So the money collected on that, is it from the reported claims from the clerk's office?
I don't know,
Amy,
Jen.
is it from you
yeah.
or from the clerk?
No, it gets paid through the clerk.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. Yeah, there's, like I said, the community corrections staff is really taken the reins and done a good job of collecting all the fees. Because it's beneficial to them, because a lot of those are their fees. Home detention fees, community corrections fees with regard to work release, with regard to the community service, we're making sure we collect those fees just to keep those programs viable. We want them based on the user fees as much as possible. We don't want to have to supplement them through the county. But they are then picking up charge of collecting those pauper council fees for me as well. So I just don't know, without having Paula sit down looking at it, where we're at. But I'm hoping that we're showing a good increase in those collection funds. I joked about it, but with our budget, all we did was, as Jim said, 3% for the employees, 3% for the public defender, and then with the movement back of office supplies, we'll put a bit of an educated guess. If I recall, it's been since 94, 96 since we've had that line item, so I really didn't know how to budget that, so we put in a bit of an educated guess with the 2,500. But other than that, we haven't changed a great deal or really any from last year's budget.
Doug, on this